Senator, good morning. Everybody wants to know about health care, so what say you, sir?
Yes. Hi, good morning. I'm sorry, I missed the first part of your question.
Oh, that's okay. No worries. Obviously, you've got a lot that you're dealing with in the Senate right now, and certainly a hot button in South Florida and around the country. The latest on the health care proposal. What's your take on what Paul Ryan and the House ended up releasing yesterday?
Well, obviously, it's not 100% of what I would want to see. And so the best way to think about it is threefold. There are three separate things that we need to do that all work together. The first is there's a bunch of regulations and rules that were written that make it harder for innovation to occur in health insurance. In essence, mandates and so forth, and things that make it difficult for insurance to be created that's flexible and affordable and the kind that people want. And that can be done by Secretary Price. The second is, what can we do through this process called reconciliation, where you only need 51 votes in the Senate? And that's what this bill endeavors to do. You can clearly repeal Obamacare, and you can replace portions of it. And there are parts of it that you cannot, because the arcane Senate rules, you would need 60 votes to do that, and obviously at this time we don't have the 60 votes in the Senate to do that. So that's what this bill attempts to do. It attempts to repeal as much of Obamacare as you can do through reconciliation and replace it with as many things as you can do with 51 votes. The third are things like being able to sell insurance across state lines and so forth. That has to be done as part of a third endeavor, and that's why the president says, for example, that we're not done, there's more to come. That's a separate package of bills, and that would have to be done with 60 votes. And the reason, I think, why the House is doing it this way first is because they figure once Obamacare is repealed and then mostly replaced, then at that point you may have a better chance of getting some of these red state senators to come on board and vote for some of those other things that we need to do that require 60 votes. So that's why it's broken out the way it is. As far as the particular bill is concerned, it has many elements that are familiar to those of us that have been in this debate: the tax credits, the reforming of Medicaid, and the like. Obviously, I want to see the score, the numbers, the impacts, and in its impact on Florida, too, is critically important to me. I don't want to see this being unfair to the state of Florida in comparison to other places.
Senator, I want to be concise in presenting this argument, but my biggest concern is that we still aren't dealing with the real crisis in healthcare, which is not access and is not people having insurance. It's actually cost. And I maintain that the insurance-first model is the single biggest obstacle to that, because Americans can't be consumers. We're great consumers when we have transparency and we have competition on service and quality of care. We don't have that right now because we sign pieces of paper that say that we're going to pay for whatever happens in there. Most of the time, we don't even know what that is, that the insurance company doesn't pay for, and we have no idea what that is. And so until and unless we get rid of the insurance-first model, I feel as though we're going to have the same problem.
Well, health is complicated because while we try to ascribe market principles, it's not a purely market-driven product. So, for example, if you go to a restaurant and you don't pay, you're not going to get the food. Well, theoretically, let me not use that as a great example because I know the dine and dash. But if you go to the Target and you buy a bunch of stuff and you get to the checkout counter, if you don't pay, you're not leaving there unless you're going to shoplift and go to jail. With insurance, we have a law that tells providers, especially hospitals, if someone shows up in your emergency room, whether they can pay you or not, you have to treat them. And that's why we end up paying for health insurance one way or the other. In essence, we either pay for it at the front end by helping people get managed coverage and so forth, or you pay for it by backfilling these hospitals through disproportionate share and low-income pool and the like for hospitals that have an enormous amount of uncompensated care. So that's the first thing I would say. As far as putting people in charge, absolutely. We do have to get away from this model, I would say, where people have few choices. I want people to be able to control their own health care dollars, and transparency is a part of that. There's no doubt. If you are paying for health coverage using an expanded health savings account, which makes a lot of sense for younger, healthier people, and you want to be able to look around and say, all right, how much does it cost to do it here versus there? You see a little bit of that, for example, in some of these urgent care centers, where you can literally walk in and it'll tell you it's $40 for a flu shot and $80 for a physical for sports or what have you. I would want to be able to see more of that. There's been some efforts in that direction. A lot of that is state-driven. I agree with you on that part. But again, when it comes to insurance, it's negotiated rates. So these insurance companies negotiate a rate for a procedure, and what you end up paying for is the out-of-pocket expenses, whether it's the deductible or the copayment. And for a lot of people, that deductible is $10,000 a year. They don't have $10,000 a year, so that goes into the uncompensated care bucket as well.
All right, very good. We'll move along to the travel ban executive order by the president. Looks like Hawaii is going to take the lead in a legal challenge. What say you about this? And from a security standpoint, what are your considerations?
Okay, so let's start with this. I think we should all be, I think we should all agree, maybe there are some people out there that don't, that when someone enters the United States of America, especially from a place where the government doesn't work very well, we need to know as much about them as possible. We have to because you have to make sure the people that are coming in are not coming in to commit crime, are not coming in to commit terrorism. We have to know that, okay? Now, usually that's not a problem. Most countries in the world have advanced the governments who have passports and documents, and we know who these people are, and they can tell us who these people are. And so if a Canadian comes into the United States, we know a lot about them because the Canadians have an advanced technological system. If someone comes in from Syria, there is no government in Syria. Okay, we know for a fact that ISIS has taken over passport-making offices. That means they've taken over offices where they can produce passports that are legitimate Syrian passports, except the person in the passport is not the person who it claims to be. But it's legitimate. It will pass every other test in terms of the document itself. That's deeply concerning. We know for a fact that terrorist groups are trying to take advantage of this. And so what the travel measures intends to do is it tends to put a pause on accepting people from certain countries where we know they are having problems producing documents that are valid. And this is a big problem around the world. There are many places in the world where you can falsify birth certificates, you can falsify a passport, you can bribe people to do it. And in the case of ISIS, they've taken over passport offices. And so what the pause intends to do is let's slow down here for 120 days and not admit people from certain countries or certain places who have trouble with these documents until we can devise a better system for being able to analyze who these people are. That's it. That's what it does. I don't understand why someone would say that that somehow is a terrible idea. And I promise you this, if Barack Obama had made this decision, and which he probably would have had to have made if he had a third term, there would not be all this uproar and lawsuits. There wouldn't. A lot of this is political.
Of course. Well, that's the concern, is that we actually have political opposition to Trump specifically that has manifested itself in the form of a lack of security, because you just articulated a great case for this. So it sounds as though the opposition is political in nature and putting political interest ahead of national security. Is that your take?
Well, I think there's a lot of hysteria. Look, I don't agree with everything that Donald Trump is for. You know, he's proposed some cuts to the Department of State and the Coast Guard that we're going to have an issue with, and we're going to have, but that's fine. But we have this other group of people, quite frankly, and I get it. They have every right to be upset. They don't like the way the election turned out. I respect their First Amendment right to speak out on it. I really do. But they're trying to go further. There are some, I'm not saying all, that basically want to nullify the election. So they didn't win. Now they want to basically make sure Donald Trump can't do anything as president. And so they're basically against anything and everything he proposes. It gets to the point where it's absurd. I mean, you can't be when you've got people nominated for the cabinet, for example, that are just completely uncontroversial, and you still have people voting against them. You know, General McMaster, highly regarded individual. He got votes against him yesterday in the Armed Services Committee. I mean, look. Do they have a right to do it? That's fine. I get it. People are going to say Republicans did the same thing under Barack Obama.
Not like this.
But my bottom line on this all is, I think they've made a terrible mistake opposing everything that Donald Trump is proposing, because in essence they lose credibility on the things that perhaps they may be able to make a legitimate argument on. But I think this hopefully will correct itself as the president continues to roll out policies on different things.
Senator Rubio, I know you and the rest of the U.S. Senate wrote a letter yesterday about threats against Jewish organizations. Would you like to talk more about that?
Part of it is we've asked the Department of Homeland Security, the FBI, the Justice Department to heighten the investigation as to what's behind this. And my sense, without a lot of evidence, but my strong sense is some of these are just copycat idiots, that decide, wouldn't it be fun to call in a bomb threat to some school, which is unfortunate because these children are being pulled out in the middle of the day and it's very disruptive. And I think that maybe there's more. Maybe there is some sort of broader effort here, and we need to know what that is. And we need anti-Semitism is an ancient evil that has been around for 5,000 years. We've seen what it's led to on numerous occasions. Some of the greatest atrocities committed in human history were furthered by anti-Semitism. There's no place for it in our country, and we need to address it.
All right. Good stuff. We appreciate what you're doing up there. Hold the feet to the fire. And by the way, I realize that I owed you an apology. I gave you a hard time last year when you said the Dolphins would win 10 games. You were the only person who correctly identified that. And so congratulations. And if anybody wants to know what's going to happen with the Dolphins, ask
Hey, I
Marco.
should have taken the over on the 10 wins, but I don't gamble. I don't gamble. I want to be clear about that. I think I played the lottery a couple times when I was younger.
But Senator, I'm the Dolphins fan here.
Listen, I had two separate friends from high school win the lottery, so I figured, things happen in threes,
I'm the Dolphins fan here, and I even disagreed with you, and I was wrong.
Well, see, that's the thing. If you think they're only going to win 8 games and they win 10, then you can't be disappointed.
So maybe we'll say 10 next season, and they win 12.
Yeah, I'm 7 games. They're going to win 7 games.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
Now you sound like Joel.
And I'll be very happy.
All right, Senator Marco Rubio, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.